Welcome to Endurance Icons, where we sit down with individuals who are excelling and inspiring in the world of endurance sports. We're your hosts, Jessica and Mark Cullen. Our guest on the podcast today is Canadian distance runner Natasha Wodak. She's an endurance icon to us because she's the Canadian marathon record holder. She recently ran a 2:23 in the Berlin Marathon. She's a two-time Olympian, running the 10,000 meter in Rio in 2016 and the marathon at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. And she also has the second fastest Canadian half marathon time of 1:09:41. Welcome. We're so happy to have you on the show.
Hello. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction.
Well, you've had such incredible accomplishments. It was pretty easy to put together.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
So have you gotten sick yet of talking about of Berlin, or is the excitement still real these days?
You can say you're sick of it.
No, it's been 2 months, which is crazy. And yeah, when I'm on my easy runs and I think about Berlin, I get excited. And I also, like today, I was doing a workout. It was only my fourth workout back. I've been really slow to get back into running and training. And I had it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like minutes hard. Like that's nothing. And in my 5-minute segment, I was running like 3:28 kilometer pace. And that was like top end speed for me. And I'm like, how the heck did I run 3:24 kilometers for 42K? Like, I don't know. So yeah.
Good little pyramid workout, but a good lesson for athletes out there that to hit those highest peaks, you need those valleys and to take it back a little bit to build. Because I'm sure you're not done with after Berlin and big plans to come, which we can dive in a little further on this podcast here. I think obviously the listeners want to hear about it, so let's hop a little bit into that Berlin race. I think a big piece I'd like to kind of start on is about a year ago from this time, you had hired a new coach. Tell us why maybe you chose Trent Stellingworth as kind of your new coach.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day that it was pretty cool that within a year with my new coach, we were able to get that Canadian record. And I just think that goes to show that there was a lot of collaboration between my old coach, Lynn, and Trent to make it such a smooth transition. And, Trent wasn't throwing a whole new program at me. He took pieces of what I was doing and built it into the program that we did. So, and Lynn was still very much in the picture, my old coach. So, grateful for that. Yeah. Lynn was with me for almost 5 years and she retired from high performance coaching in September, which, I was definitely heartbroken because she was such an amazing coach and she's family to me. I was just at our house the other night. She made me dinner. We had wine and champagne. It was our celebration from Berlin. But I wasn't sure where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I mean, I was 39 at the time. I'm 40 now. And I don't want to go and join a training group in the US. I don't want to join a training group anywhere. I want to be at home with my partner and my cats. And I love living in Vancouver. So that limited my options of, well, what is a good coach for me here on the West Coast in Vancouver? And I've known Trent for 10 years. He's been our lead of IST, integrated support team, for all of the national teams that I've been on. He's got a PhD in physiology. So I've known him from that standpoint. He had in the past helped me build my heat and nutrition plans for the marathon. So he knew very well what I was doing and everything. And I like him very much. So, but I didn't really know if he was coaching anyone besides Melissa Bishop. That was kind of his side gig, coaching Melissa Bishop. And so I was he was the person that we wanted. And I was I'm just going to reach out and see, because he's in Victoria, which is just a short ferry ride away. And so, yeah, I talked to Lynn about it and she was really excited. And we reached out to Trent and he was okay, let's have a conversation. And then he had to have a conversation with Lynn and he had to have a conversation with his wife. And there was a lot that went into this decision. It wasn't just, would it work for both parties? We had a few FaceTimes. He had a lot of calls with Lynn, which, it was ultimately a very smooth transition. And yeah, I've just gone in full trust, and it's been great. Trent is such an amazing coach. And not only is he just like super smart and knows all the science of the sport, but like he's got this sort of sensitive side as a dad of two young boys. And, you know, he gets the human part, the emotional part, which is, it's hard to find both in a coach, especially a male coach. So yeah, it's gone really well. And we've found I go over the island sometimes. He's come here for some big workout. So it's gone really well. And I couldn't have asked for a better transition, and because it can be really difficult changing coaches. So I'm very grateful.
So when you go through that training, you're working with him for close to like 10 months up to Berlin there. Was there some big changes to the training program? You said he maybe made some just additions to kind of what you were doing before. Anything kind of jump out of some changes he made to optimize your training that you noticed?
Yeah, the one thing that sticks out that we did that was new was the double threshold days. I know a few other athletes did the same. Melindy Elmore, who had the Canadian record before me, she was doing some double threshold days as well. So that was very new to me. It was hard, but I liked it. So that was one of the changes we made. We increased my mileage slightly, but I think that just happened naturally. You know, it was only my 5th marathon. Yeah, I think. And so we, you know, when I started training for Arizona in the fall of 2020, you know, I hadn't done more than 125K a week in how many years? So we couldn't jump that much, right? So it's been a slow build towards just a little bit. And when I say more mileage, I mean 160 was where we topped out, 160K. I was just more consistent weeks there. But he still kept in my cross training, my elliptical. Yeah, we did a lot more long progression runs than I had done before, which I think was in the beginning my most difficult run. It was the only time I wasn't able to hit the paces that had been assigned to me. That was very frustrating for me because I usually execute every workout. So in the beginning, I couldn't hit the paces in the end of those long runs, and I hated it. But when I did get, you know, the last few I did before Berlin, I nailed them, and I was like, yes. So, yeah, those were I guess the main changes that we made there.
Nice. And it looks like you had won the Canadian 10K and kind of half marathon championships kind of along the way. Were those like kind of starting to build your confidence with Trent early in the year that things were kind of moving in the right direction and kind of snowballed into Berlin for you?
Yeah. I ran the New York half marathon in March and ran 1:10:01, and that was a really challenging course. So I think in Houston or something, I think I would have been like low 69. So that was my first big race with Trent, and I was like, okay, this is going well. Unfortunately, but the Boston Marathon didn't go well, and I don't think that was any reflection of anything we did necessarily. I just think it wasn't my day, which happens in the marathon. But we learned a lot from that. And one of the things I think with Boston that maybe went wrong is I don't know if I tapered as hard as I normally do. So this time for Berlin, we tapered really hard, just like we did at the Olympics, just like we did at Arizona. And I do really well off of a big taper. So now I know that about myself, and it can be a little strange in that final week when I feel like I'm doing almost like nothing, but that's what works for me. And I run really well off of it. So yeah, I'm grateful for, you know, my shitty marathon sort of to get it out of the way and also to learn from it, and, you know, and Trent's still getting to know me and what works for me as well. So I think we learned a little bit in that marathon build.
Nice. So it sounded like prep went pretty well for Berlin. So going into that race, did you have like already kind of a target in mind for like a number that you were going after, or was it a little bit flex on the day?
Oh, no. I was, from the very first time you asked me what I was doing this year, it was, I'm going to the Berlin Marathon, and I'm going to try and get the Canadian record.
Heck yeah,
and
I love it.
I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I did not take my place at the World Championships in Eugene so that I could try and go and run really fast in Berlin. That's what I wanted to do. So I was all in, whatever that took. And for me, that meant all summer I basically didn't race. I just trained. I stayed home in Vancouver and I trained my butt off, and I loved it.
It's so remarkable. I love the confidence and going after a goal. Did you ever have any doubt if you could make it or not? Or did you go into it being like, heck yes, I've got this? It wasn't a question in your mind.
Of course, there's always doubt, like look what happened in Boston. I was very confident. I was fit to run 225, 226 that day. And I fell very, very far short with a 235. And, you don't want to go in overconfident ever. It's not a good thing. I don't like being cocky, but it's important to be confident. You got to find that sort of middle ground.
Absolutely.
And I knew my training had gone really well this summer. And I, you just sort of, you crunch the numbers, and the numbers said sub 225, basically on paper. If everything went well and I had my pacer and I got my fueling and the weather was good and all these things, I wasn't too jet lagged, all these things fell into place. I was like, there's no reason why I can't run, sub 224.50, which was the Canadian record. So I was pretty confident. I, confided in a few girlfriends who asked me. I said, yes, I can do it. I feel like it's mine to lose at this point. Like I felt like I was fit enough. I was ready enough. I just needed to execute, but it can be very difficult to put all the pieces together on the right day.
So you said that you've kind of made it sound like you needed the perfect day to kind of make that happen. But when you hear the stories about the day, maybe tell us a little bit about those missing bottles in the early stretch. I think this is a very good lesson for people to say that like a day like a Canadian record isn't necessarily the perfect day always, and it's what you make of it. Yeah,
of course. I mean, there's always going to be, something that's not perfect on race day or race week or whatever, right? And the week prior, I had gotten in a week early to Berlin to try and get used to the time change. And I was having a really hard time. I just was not sleeping well. And I kind of panicked the day before the race because I hadn't slept well. And ultimately that night I ended up taking a sleeping pill. I took a Zopicone, which is not what you should do the night before a race. But I was lying in bed with my partner and I'm like, I can't sleep again. And it was pitch black and I was crying, and he's a doctor. So I was like, can I take a Zopicone? And he was like silent. Right. And I'm like, Alan, he's like, I'm thinking. And meanwhile, not only is he thinking, he's actually also researching the half-life of Zopicone. So then again, like a full minute later, so I'm like, Alan, he's like, okay, you can take half. So I'm very grateful that he was there with me for more than that. But so I took half and I slept a solid 5 hours and I woke up, I'm like, I'm good to go. Right. But it can leave you very groggy. And so it's not ideal to take a sleeping pill the night before the race. But either way, I slept, I woke up, I felt great. In the race, I had a pinch in my left glute. Been just like, you've probably had it before where you're like, that's annoying and you're just waiting for it to release. It took about 15K before that kind of released. But the bottles not having my first two bottles was definitely a distraction from the glute. But yeah, my 5K bottle wasn't there. And then my 10K bottle wasn't there. And for those of you that aren't familiar with how the elites work, we get tape bottles at every table every 5K. So I don't carry any gels with me. So when my first two bottles weren't there, I was like, shit, like my bottles aren't going to be here. And so I kind of panicked, but in the moment I was like, I need a gel now. So there was a group of guys that were running with me and my pacer. And they had just random guys that just were like, yeah, we'll try to run 224 too. Cool. And so I asked these guys, I'm like, does anyone have a gel? And one guy was like, I have a Morton. And I was like, well, I've never tried it, but hey, I need fuel, so I'll take it. So I took a Morton, which was fine. I had no issues. And then when I hit 15K, my bottle was there and the rest of my bottles were there. So grateful for that. But it was a little bit of panic, but my pacer, Tony, had bottles as well, and his were there, so he could share with me, and there were gels on course. And I was like, if worst comes to worst, I can track down my partner who's on the course and see if he can go to a station and tell them, I don't know. So either way, I ended up getting my fuel and it was fine. But yeah, the first two not being there was,
You improvised well on the fly, though. That's incredible to just ask for a gel, be willing to take it. I know, it just shows the level that you're a professional of understanding you need fuel and just saying it's not there, so I'm not going to take it. That wouldn't have been an option, or you would have had a very different outcome.
Yeah, I knew, like, of course, my coach is a scientist, right? So I knew how important fueling is, especially in the early stages. So I knew I had to get something in me. And I also have tried a lot of gels and I've never had issues. So I was pretty confident that trying something new wasn't going to upset my stomach. And I also know that Morton, even though I haven't tried it, is one of the best gels and has, I believe, some research has shown the least amount of stomach issues and all the different gels, something along those lines. So you might know a bit more of that research than I do, but yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely big fans of Morton. That's what we use in a bunch of our racing as well. So good choice.
Yeah.
So just finishing off kind of that Berlin conversation. So you had taken it out in like 1:12:20 that first half, and then like what a negative split there, running like 1:10:53 in the back half. Did you just what was your kind of mindset as you got through half? Did you feel you were in a great place, and kind of how did the rest flow from there right to the finish?
Yeah, I definitely felt really good. I was a little uneasy that we were on the slower end of where I wanted to be. I wanted to be 1:12 to 1:12:20. So we were at the very slowest end, and it didn't leave any wiggle room, right? As good as I felt, you never know, right? I could hit 38K and just boom, be done. So yeah, that made me a little nervous. But I also felt so good. And so just after around, 25K, I said to Tony, like, we need to pick it up. And I had my auto split off on my watch. So I was only getting the 5K splits. So I was like, they were mostly 17:05 to 17:10. And I was like, we need to start getting under 17 minutes for the next few. And then it was 16:55. I'm like, perfect, right? I said that to him. And I would have been stoked if we had just continued to run 16:55 to 17. I knew we'd be in the low 224 range. I was like, yes. But then at 30K, like, we just started moving, and there was girls like that we were passing, other women. And so that's what we kept going for. There just kept being another woman in the distance. And I was just following Tony, and I didn't realize how fast we were running. And then I split the next 5K and it was 16:37. And I was like, holy crap. Like that was fast. We were moving. And then that scared me a bit. So I was like, what if we've gone too soon? I always I coach some girls, don't go until 35K. And here we have already started to drop the pace significantly at 30K. But, I was like, let's keep going. Like, I still felt good. Like, I was still waiting for that shoe to drop, like waiting for that marathon fatigue to set in. And it hadn't yet. So we just kept rolling. We passed another woman. And then I remember specifically, it was around 38K. My brother was on course and he was yelling and he waved at me and I waved at him and I hit like a divot and I kind of it was not a big deal, but when you're not looking and you kind of hit like a divot and you're like, ugh. So then I tried to get my legs back rolling. And I think between that K, I thought that we had slowed down because it felt so hard, but we'd actually sped up, I guess. And it was like a 3:13 or something. So I was like, I think I didn't know at the time, but I asked Tony, I'm like, are we okay? Have we slowed down? I felt like it got really hard. And he's like, no, we're fine, right? We're going so fast. And he was cheering and he was just like, come on, let's go. And he was raising his hands to the crowd. And we were just rolling. And it's kind of a blur because I remember it being hard, but I remember being like in control. Like I remember going through my checklist that Lynn had taught me so well, which was like, when it got hard, what can you control? And so I remember in that moment being like, use Tony, right? I kept kind of coming up almost beside him a few times when it got hard, and I started to struggle and I was like, bring your arms in. What are you doing with your breath? And so I was able to bring myself back around in those really hard Ks. And when we got to 40K and we ran 16:35 for that second 5K. I was like, whoa. And then I was doing some math in my head. I was like, no, you 223 range. You're going to run in the 223s today. I was like, what? And so you don't have time for too much math, but I was like, just don't die. Cause I was still so scared, right? What if I blow up right now? And I was just like, and that last like 1K is like the straight shot. You're just running forever towards that gate. And Tony had now like pulled up next to me and was like, let's go. And it was just something happened in my foot, which I basically couldn't walk on for a few days after, but it was fine. I was like, just don't be like a plantar tear. Keep going. Like, it's like, keep going. So, yeah, I mean, it got hard in the end, but it never got like, I think I got a 3:21 between 40 and 41. So I didn't even, I just was slower than I had been the last 10K. So I was still just pushing. And to me, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I don't understand how we ran that hard in the last bit, but it was fun. And I just kept giving her. And and I finished. I saw the clock, and you can see there's pictures of me. I posted a few on my Instagram where I see the clock, and I put my hand up, and it was pretty shocking. I didn't think, like, my dream race, I thought 2:23:45 would be like, damn. So to see 2:23:12 was like, oh, what? Like, my brother texted me after, and he was like, because he was there. And so they didn't really realize how fast I was running, right? Because they're like there. And he goes, is that time right? And I was like, yes.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
He was like, because he knew what I was trying to run, right? So he was like, oh, and he's not big into running. So he was like, yeah, it was funny. Yes, this.
So, like, what did it feel like? Like, that it's you looking at the clock. Like, what was your first, like, I don't know, 3 emotions when you crossed that finish line?
I think happiness, of course, disbelief, and at the same time, relief. Like, so much had gone into this, and I wanted so badly for it to go well. And I had dreamt about it, and so many people had invested so much in me. And even like my parents, my partner, my brother, and my nephew were in Berlin with me. And like, I wanted to run well for them and for everybody that supported me. So when I finished and I did it, it was just like, relief that I was able to do what I knew that I could. And and then just like, what the frick? And like,
I'm amazing. It's cool to hear you say that you felt in control the whole race, because what you posted on social media afterward, that you felt like your body sort of broke down after that, and it wasn't injury. It was just literally like you rang every little bit out of yourself into that race. What were the few weeks after that and the recovery look like for you?
Yeah, it was the next few days were rough. Like, I had quite a bit of pain in my right foot. Now I do have quite severe arthritis in my big toe joint in both my feet, and I've had surgery on my right foot. So it's always been an issue. It kind of ebbs and flows between, but I think it just got really irritated, and we're not sure what I did, if I sort of strained a ligament or what I did, but it was pretty sore, and it's been an ongoing battle since then. It's better. It's not great. I actually have an MRI tomorrow just to like make sure that it's not a stress reaction or anything. Like, my partner's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's telling me that it is not. So last night I was like, if I have a stress reaction and you let me run on this thing for the last 6 weeks, I'm sleeping in the spare room because I'm going to be that mad at you. Like, that's exactly what I said to him. And we never fight. So he's like, it's not. So anyways, we'll see. I don't think I'm like, he specializes in foot and ankle as well. So I should really listen to him when he's telling me that. He's like, you have arthritis, you have old feet. Like, so, my foot has been quite sore. But we have a scale that we use. A lot of athletes do. If anything is more than a 4 out of 10 on the pain scale for like a number of days in a row, then like cut it back. So my foot's been between like a 2 and a 4. And when I put on like super shoes and do workouts, it's like a 1. So that indicates to me that yes, it's the arthritis. So either way. And I also have osteitis pubis, which I've had for years, but it's totally been under control until this marathon. So it flared up quite a bit in my return to run. So I had a lot of pain in my pelvis. I had a lot of pain in my hip flexors and in my glute attachments. So yeah, it was sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Every time I thought I would turn a corner, the next day it was just like I could run 20 minutes and pain would hit like a 5. And I had to be honest with myself and stop and be like, okay, that's enough for today. And so, yeah, it's definitely been slow going, but I honestly felt like I did break myself, and I got COVID in there as well. So, yeah, that was not great either. So
you had the kitchen sink thrown at you. Oh my God.
And I haven't had COVID yet either. So yeah, I'm just grateful that I got it now and not in the Berlin Marathon build, because the fatigue was real.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like when we talk to like top professional athletes, what strikes me is how many have medical issues like you just described. And I think so often people look at, their sports heroes and think that they're these genetically gifted gods that just have perfect days always, because that's the only way that they could run as fast as you did. And I think it's so similar to your race of just adapting, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how you manage through arthritis, and how do you continue to perform at this professional level despite all of these challenges that you face?
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know that everybody has something going on. It's very rare in marathon running that you're going to be like, nothing hurts, like in my dreams, right? Yeah. So no, there's always like a little something that's, especially when you're pushing your body so hard and in anything. So, yeah, everyone should know that it's not like we're all running and pain free. But I will say, like the week of Berlin, when I was like not sleeping, I was very grateful that the runs felt so good. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, like my body feels so good, and it was scary because it felt so good. So I was like, okay, you're ready to go. So besides that, I had all sorts of little baby niggles along the way. I constantly have something. I mean, I have that arthritis, but yeah, one thing that we've done a lot of, and if you follow me on social media, I do a lot of cross training. I elliptical 3 to 4 days a week, always. Sometimes when I'm away at training camps, it's less if I don't have access to an elliptical, but yeah, I throw that in there. It just takes a little bit less impact on the body, and you're still getting your aerobic engine working. And it's worked really well for me. So I do a lot of soft surface running when I'm not doing specific sessions on the road. Almost everything is soft surface. I drive to all my runs. So I always say to people, if you have the time, don't be lazy. Drive to the trails, get on there. It does make a big difference. I mean, if you're running on the pavement every single day, it's hard on the body, right? So yeah, that was some changes that I made in 2017 was the soft surface running, the increase in the cross training. I think that have made a big difference. I'm very consistent with my physio, massage. I do Pilates, which I think that's been something new over the last 2 years, which I've really liked. And I think it's helped with my pelvic floor and like just my core stability. So like that, I do my strength training. I think for a lot of runners, that's the one thing that we let slide a lot is the strength training and like Pilates and yoga. Cause like we're running, we don't want to do anything. Like even yesterday, I was supposed to do my strength training on my own, and I didn't do it because I was tired. And I'm pretty good. I almost never skip it and on Thursdays I have like a strength coach that I Zoom with. So the other times I'm supposed to do it on my own, I'm pretty good about doing it, but I didn't. And I told my partner last night that I skipped it. And he made this face. He's like, you skipped something? And I was like, I know. I felt so guilty. But that is the one thing that I think we let slide the most. Like I would never skip a run. If a run was on my program, I would never skip it. But strength is the one thing that you're like, oh. So I think it's important to be consistent with that, which I usually am, except yesterday. Yeah, so I think those are some of the big changes that I've made in the last 5 years that have helped me stay healthy. I also take a day off, like a lot more than other runners do. Right now, it's every basically 8 days. And then during a marathon build, it's every 10 days. And so a lot of marathoners I talk to don't take like any, which I would be broken physically and mentally more, I think. I love just a day. We used to call it with Lynn, it was called Freedom Fridays because it was always Friday. And so every Friday it would be like Freedom Friday. And I just loved it. And I could do whatever I wanted. And it didn't have to do anything. Like I didn't have to cross train. I didn't have to, I just ate, drank wine, whatever I wanted to do, you know.
Hang out with the cats.
I actually volunteer on Fridays. So yes, I hang out with the cats.
I love it. I find it interesting, like you make all of these choices because they work for you. You get pushback and everyone has an opinion. You mentioned your cross training and people have an opinion. You think 3 to 4 times a week, they say that's too much. They say that you take too much time off. You get a lot of criticism. How do you handle that? Because you're quite outspoken about your stance and what you believe is right for you. How do you deal with, I'm going to call them the haters?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 223 spoke for itself. So this was all sort of stuff that I heard before, like, I'll be surprised if she runs well based off of how much elliptical she does. And like, you know, taking a day off every 10 days. I mean, I think other runners don't do it because it makes them feel like they're losing fitness or they're lazy.
Or they're showing they're weak or something.
Yeah. And it's totally the opposite. I feel like it's a day to just let your body absorb all the hard work that it's done and for your mind to have a break and for you to reset and be focused on your next week of training coming in ready to go. So I mean, I can't stress enough how important I think it is to take those rest days. And I hope that I have inspired people that by me taking rest days, like you can run really fast and take a rest day, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay. And you don't have to run 200 kilometers a week. Some people run well off that and that's great, but it's not the only way, you know? And so I hope that I, you know, have showed people that, you know, you can run a good marathon off of, you know, you need to run a lot, but you don't need to run that much. And also one of the things is that I'm 40 and I've been running since college, since high school. So I have a lot of mileage already in my body, already in my system. So I don't necessarily need to run as much mileage as somebody in their early 20s.
So how did you get started in the sport?
I've just always been super athletic since I was a little girl. And I played soccer and basketball and cross country and track and all the sports. And so I was just, you know, good at them. And I had a lot of fun. And yeah, but I'm grateful that in high school, I continued to play metro level soccer up until grade 12. I played basketball into grade 12. So I didn't burn myself out running really hard at a young age. So yeah, and then I went to school, University of Arkansas, Little Rock for a couple of years, didn't like it, transferred home and finished off my degree at Simon Fraser University, where I ran on the track team there.
So you did a lot of track earlier in your career. What was your path and what led you to the marathon?
Yeah, I mean, I started back in high school running like the 800 and then it was the 1500, the 3000. I even tried the 3000 steeplechase at one point.
Wow.
One and done. Yeah. And and then we moved up to the 5K and then the 10K. And I did do a marathon in 2013. And it was just, it was okay. I ran 235 and, you know, that was like 9 years ago, right? 9 years ago. So then running a 235 KB was pretty good, right? Like, we've come a long way in the marathoning world since then, but, I didn't really enjoy the training then. It was just a different time in my life. And then I got injured and I started running the 10,000 and it never seemed to be like a good time to go back to the marathon because I wasn't really willing to risk getting injured for the 10K. So I just kept running the 10K and putting off the marathon until the pandemic hit. And I was like, well, the only race that there seems to be is that marathon in Arizona. And so why don't I give it a try? I'm not getting any younger. So yeah, 12 weeks out, we started a marathon build and it went really well. And I had so much more fun this time around. You know, I have a whole new team. I'm in a whole different place in my life and I had so much fun training for it. It was like I had started a new event. Every workout was a PB and like, it was just
so cool.
Yeah, it was great. And then of course the race went really well. And I just enjoyed it. And then I decided to do the marathon at the Olympics, and I loved that. That was incredible. And I loved training for it. And yeah, so I'm addicted now, I think.
So you've been to the Olympics twice, once in Rio, once in Tokyo. What are your favorite experiences from both times? Because I would imagine a 10K at the Olympics is very different than a marathon at the Olympics.
Yes. And they're extremely different Olympics because one was, obviously during COVID. So, in Rio, the race went well. I'd had a really rocky buildup, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I ran well for myself, not spectacular, but good enough. And my parents were there, and I had a lot of fun. Like, we went to the Canada House, and I went and watched other track events. And so I had a lot of fun while I was there. And in Tokyo, we were in quarantine, and we were in Sapporo, so we weren't even in the village. So it was a totally different experience. We weren't with the rest of the team. It was just the marathoners and race walk. So we made the best of it. We watched the Olympics on our computers on CBC. What's it called when you VPN? We all had a VPN. Yep. And I was like, what's it called when you steal the internet? And then that race what was different about the marathon than the 10,000 is I had done a lot of training with Melindy, and not a lot, but I felt like we were running it together. And so I didn't feel alone, even though we were quarantined. So, and Melindy and I did run the first basically 16, 17K together of that race. So it was nice to be able to do the marathon, to feel a bit more of a team feel, where the 10K was a little more lonely. I mean, I know Lanny ran it as well, but she was also running the marathon, and so she had a lot going on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I was much happier with my race at the Olympics in Tokyo than I was in Rio. I had more confidence. I wasn't as nervous. I was more confident, just older and more mature, maybe.
We'll call it experience. Yes. So there have been a lot of improvements in female Canadian distance running recently. What do you think is driving that?
So I get asked this question a lot, and I've thought about it, and it's not just Canada. That's the thing. It's every country. Female marathoning has just gone like this, right? The American record was broken twice last year, right? Twice? This year? Twice.
Yeah, I think it's twice.
So yeah, twice in the same year. So it's everybody's getting faster. I think that in Canada, we've seen a lot bigger jumps, perhaps. And I just think that's because more women are running marathons. Before, it was that's too far, and we just weren't running it. But I think Lanny and Krista started this trend of yes, we can be good at the marathon. We can be good at the world stage. And it's just sort of snowballed. And now we're all sort of inspiring each other, and it's really cool. And seeing what they're doing, in the US and all over the world, women are just running so fast, and makes you want to try and run fast too. I saw, Emily Sisson runs 2:18. I'm can I get down to 2:20? I don't know. Who knows? I would have told you were crazy in 2013. And if someone had said you can run 2:23 in 9 years, I would no chance. Mm-hmm. And also the shoe technology, you can. Mm-hmm. That is a huge part of it as well.
So is it, which super shoes do you use? Is it the Asics?
Yeah, I'm with Asics. So
nice.
I wore the Metaspeed Sky original, not the Metaspeed Sky Plus. And I really like it. It's a great shoe.
Nice. The other thing, you touched on it a little bit, that you and Melindy kind of were working together in that one marathon. The coolest thing I think I've seen in the Canadian female distance running, following a number of you on social media and hearing podcasts and stuff like that, is it seems like there really is this cool camaraderie between you guys, and you want each other to almost break somebody's record, because it's taking that next step. Is that the case? Are you guys reaching out to one another and cheering each other on often?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Andrea Sakafian, who broke my 10K record and my half marathon record by 1 second.
Oh,
Like that year, she came and stayed at my house for 10 days when she
So
was in
cool.
Vancouver. Like, we're all friends. Like, we all want each other to run well. Records are meant to be broken. Melindy not only wished me luck before Berlin, she was one of the, first people to congratulate me the next day. That also comes with a sense of confidence that I know she has, that she's like, all right, well, I'm going to get back. So you enjoy it while you have it, sort of things.
I love that.
We are friends. At the end of the day, we're all competitive. And when we're out there, I think the Olympics and like world champs are a bit different because we can run better if we work together, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not as in direct competition, but somewhere like if she had been racing Berlin against me, it would have been more like, no, like I'm getting that record today. You're not,
game
like, you're
on.
doing your own thing. Yeah. But I think going forward, like we both, I think, want to do, like with Melindy and I, like the same, we want to run in Paris. And so I think I would like to be able to work with her. Like, we're hopefully going to go to Palm Springs for a little training camp in January. Like, we train really well together, which is awesome. Like, I love doing sessions with her, and you just get better together. Like, I know it's like corny, that better together, but it is so true. And I was just in Victoria this past weekend, training with my team. And Gabriella Stafford's one of my teammates now,
Nice.
as well as Genevieve Lalonde and
cool.
Julie Lebach. So, Jen's a Canadian record holder in the 3 steeple. And then I've got Gabriella, who's the 5K 1500. I'm like, this is quite the team. And we did this long progression run together. I mean, it was just so awesome to be able to like work together with these girls and help each other when we can. And yeah, I think the Canadian run community is truly special, and we are friends. And I have been in it a long time, so I know a lot of these girls from before we were ever good, I guess you could say, before we were, just, yeah, like I remember me and Lanny telling me she wanted to run a marathon back in like 2011, and I laughed at her. And here we are.
You guys obviously live in different parts of the country, but it's so cool to see like everybody. It seems like a lot, even on the female side, are coming like back to Canada. Like you mentioned, Gabriella, I think she was down in like the States there with down in like Portland there and stuff. Why do you think some of the athletes are coming back to Canada to train? Is it because you have that new teammate camaraderie, or is the coaching improving, or what do you kind of chalk that up to?
Yeah, I think the more successful the Canadians are that live in Canada, the more it's like, yeah, we've got good coaches here. We've got good programs here, and it's Canada. It's a great place to live. And if you're Canadian, you want to be living in your own country and closer to your family and friends. For me, a big part of why I don't do a lot of training camps, I don't go to altitude a lot. I like to be home. I like to be near my friends and family. That's important to me. So I feel like maybe that's a pull for some other people. And I think we're creating a really great team and program in Victoria. We have a name coming out soon. We have a team name now. So yeah, so Trent's wife Hillary coaches Jen Malone and Kate Ayers. And then we have me and Gabriella and Melissa Bishop and Julie Lebach. So there's a good squad of us that can all work together. And yeah, I mean, why travel when you have great facilities here and great coaches and great women to run with? And the UVic boys that we can put out there sometimes to chase.
So good. So talking kind of next steps in your kind of training and plans coming up, is the focus go right away towards like another Olympics, or do you have some other kind of goals coming up in the shorter term?
Yes, the golden question. Everything in the next 2 years is geared towards Paris. So this year is about what can we do to make it the easiest to qualify. But at the same time, I told Trenton when we started working there last year, like, I'm 40, I'm turning 40. I've been to 2 Olympics. Like, and that last Olympic build was long. It was like 5 years, right? And it's stressful. And I don't like everything being about the Olympics all the time because it takes some of the fun away from the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I was very clear with Trent that I want to be successful. I want to perform at the highest level, but I want to have some fun and I want to do things that I want to do, which last year meant I want to do Boston and I want to do Berlin, and I do not want to do World Championships. So that was, not a lot. Some people were like, I can't believe you're like not going to run World Championships. It's like, I've run 4 World Championships. Like, I've done it. And now I want to have the opportunity to run really fast and run a world major and things like that. So, I want to have some fun in the spring. I don't know what that's going to look like. I've considered running world cross country championships in Australia if they were to select me. Unfortunately, I can't race in the championships this weekend because I'm not ready, right? So, but in their criteria, they have 2 spots that they can select people at their discretion that they think would perform well. So, I feel like that would be, I love cross country. I've been to 3 world cross championships. So that would be something that I would consider doing. It's in February. It's a great way to build strength. And then, maybe run some half marathons. I do want to run world championships in Budapest. I want to run the marathon there. So as long as I'm selected, I will go and I will race that. And we're still waiting for criteria to come out for world champs and for the Olympics. So it will change the way I do things. I do not think that Toronto will be a marathon selection anymore. So that makes it easier for me to decide to do world championships in Budapest because they're at the end of August. And then, we might try and fit a marathon in this spring if we need to. And if Worlds doesn't go well, who knows, maybe try to squeeze in Houston, but right now the main goal I think is to run really well at World Championships next summer and compete well and run top 8, hopefully.
That is great.
We'll be cheering for you.
Yeah, you got this.
You.
I think there were so many good sections in those last couple segments that I think a lot of like recreational and professional runners can take out of that. Is that like, first of all, the like fun piece, you actually aren't just doing things because they're the most epic things. Like I need to do every world championships or every Olympics, like that fun piece, but also that balance piece you talked about of like, everybody always wants to go to the extreme and hit those altitude camps and those peak training weeks. I think it's like really refreshing to hear somebody take like a very balanced approach that wants to live at home, live their life. Like you're just so real on social media and that you like do cross training, take a day off. Like I think there's so many lessons people can take from the way you're approaching things and still obviously hitting like incredible performances, hitting a 2:23 marathon. So I think it's some cool lessons people can take out of this for sure.
And the fact that you've mentioned wine like 3 times on this podcast, like I know for a fact by following you, you love wine. So yes. I think that might surprise some people because they instantly think that, to be a high performer, you need to live, I'll say, a monk-like existence. You have fun. You have fun in your training, but you also have fun in your day-to-day. You play with your cats, you drink wine. What is your sort of recipe for that balance and sort of your rules around that, if you have any?
I don't like rules. When I started training with Lynn back in 2017, I was pretty burnt out and like, I want there to be more fun in this. And she was great. Like, she was like, there's a way that we can do this and it can be fun. And that's how she did it. Back in her day, and she's an Olympic medalist. So, I just think the balance is so important. And I do when it gets into the nitty gritty, like I am very serious. And I think people see that, I'm not drinking wine every night and stuffing my face with ice cream, but I definitely, throughout the summer, I was having a glass of wine, like 4 or 5 nights of the week. And that was, in the thick of things. And I would have ice cream and I do those things. I really enjoy a nice glass of rosé on the patio. But am I getting drunk? No. Am I having, right now I might go, I'm off season. So yeah, I might go out this weekend and have a bottle of wine with my girlfriends. Sure. But I'm never drinking to the point that I'm drunk or that I'm hungover. And so I think that's important. Like binge drinking is very hard on the body. I do know that. And I do know that drinking too much alcohol is just not a good thing, like overall. So I know my limits. And I don't ever like encourage people to drink if they don't want to, but like, I just do what I do and it works for me. And I do, when I get like 4 weeks out, I am a lot more particular with what I'm putting into my body. I just want to make sure I'm fueling properly, I'm recovering properly, doing everything that I can to get the best out of that. But I do still have wine. But like I said, end of a nice training day, I fueled properly. I've had a great dinner. I've drank all my electrolytes, my water. Okay, I can sit on the patio and have that nice glass of wine. And that's what works for me. And I you were talking about training camps and whatnot. And there's an opportunity to go to Kenya this January to do 5 weeks. Gabriella and Rowan are going, and Coach Trent's going for a little while. And my partner can't go. He has to work, as most people do. And I didn't know what to do. I was kind of on the fence. Like, this is a great opportunity to go to Kenya. But ultimately, I had to decide. I know myself, and what's best for me is I didn't want to go without Alan. I didn't want to go without my partner. And I kind of was worried, like, you should do this, because this is like, be brave and go and do this camp. Well, I was like, no, you know yourself, and you know that you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to be really difficult. Yes, it'll be culturally great and all these things, but at the end of the day, it will be really difficult for me. And so I just know what works for me. And that comes from years of doing some training camps and being like, I'm not happy here. And I'm happy at home, and I train well at home. And Vancouver is one of the best places in the world to run. So I'm like, I'm going to do what I know works and what makes me happy. So,
and that seems to be the
I've learned.
Well, it seems to be the secret of your success. You follow what makes you happy, and you have enough experience to know what those things are. And you have the confidence to not need to apologize for it. And I think that that's one of the reasons you are so inspiring to us. I think that more athletes need to take that on, because you can still run a 2:23 marathon and hit a record, drink wine, and not need to go to follow, where everyone else is. And so I think that that's what makes, like, why I love following you on social media, and why you're one of my, I'll say, icons. So thank you. Who is your endurance icon?
Well, definitely Melindy. I know that we're like, I guess equals, but I always sort of put Melindy up on a pedestal a bit. She's always been 1 year older than me. I've been racing her since grade 9, and she was in grade 10. And she's just always sort of setting the bar and been so exceptional at what she does. But it's not just that she runs really fast, it's that she's just a really great human being. And she really cares for the people that she runs with, and is a good ambassador for the sport. So, she's always been someone that has inspired me. And, like Shalane Flanagan, ever since she won the New York Marathon, like, I've always loved her, and I've got the opportunity to meet her several times, and she's given me a hug a couple times too, which is really cool. So, yeah. And of course, like Lynn Kanuka. I mean, she's a freaking legend. And the things that she was able to do back in the 80s, I saw her spikes the other night. I'm like, how'd you run 4 flat in these things? Like, it is incredible. Like, and she put on a super shoe for the first time ever this week. And she's like, oh, these are like clouds and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, like, and she still holds the Canadian record in the 10K on the road in 31:44. She ran that over like 30 years ago, and whatever flats were available on that day. So like, and she wasn't a 10K runner. Like, she's just epic. So I've always looked up to her, obviously, and I'm so grateful that she's been like a mentor and guided me and molded me. So,
well, she deserves icon status for sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
You should have her on your podcast. She is amazing.
We'll add her to the list. I have to say, there's a reason we asked this question, because if we ask inspiring people who inspires them, it's hard not to have really great people on for interviews. So thanks for that. We'll definitely ask her. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. This was awesome to be able to sit down with you.
It was fun chatting. I always like talking about Berlin.
Wow. How amazing was that? It is such a privilege to be able to sit down with these icons and have conversations that are that inspiring. I don't know about you, but I learned so much from that episode today. As we look towards the holiday season, I just want to say thank you so much for all your support. We're such a new podcast and we're just getting started, but it means so much to have each of you supporting, liking, subscribing, and commenting on our posts, and most importantly, listening every single week when we drop this episode. If you want to give us an extra special Christmas present, all we would ask is that you subscribe to us on YouTube, that you give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you listen to. This is relatively new and this is completely a passion project for Mark and I. So it would mean the world to us if you would support us in that way. Wishing you all an incredible holiday season with your friends and family. Happy training, and we will see you next week.